Emotions are one of the many common threads that connect us all as humans and have the ability to alter our decision-making process and even the most rational among us. On this week's episode of the Infusion Breakdown Show, the Breakdown crew sat down amongst ourselves to discuss this topic. Can we truly control our emotions, or do they control us? Let's see what we come up with.
Before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to introduce to you our Black-owned Business of the Week, where we showcase quality Black-owned businesses for you to support every week. This week's business is the Peace Mindset Gratitude Journaling Project, brought to you by previous guest and friend of the channel, Dondre George. Gratitude journaling is an effective practice for keeping oneself grounded and developing a deeper appreciation for things that often go overlooked. If you're looking to get into the practice, be sure to follow Peace Mindset on IG for some ideas to help get you started.
So the question we have for today, can you really control your emotions? Comment below. Let us know, okay?
So I'll take the question first. And I say yes, because I'm going to clear up first a misconception people have about controlling your emotions. Controlling your emotions doesn't mean that you don't have a feeling. It just means that you are in charge of the subsequent actions that occur afterwards. So it's like anyone who tells you any different, that they can't control their emotions and stand by that claim, I compare them to a child who has grown up but not yet matured, because that's a vital part of being an adult, really, I feel like. And the easiest way to put it into an analogy is, I've used this before, a thermostat versus a thermometer. So a thermometer is only going to reflect the current temperature, and it stops there. Whereas the thermostat, it will tell you the current reading, but you can also adjust it to match whatever temperature it's at. So if it's too warm, it's going to bring it back down, and you have that ability. And so that's what I seek to be, is more like a thermostat as opposed to a thermometer, where if I feel a certain way, you get a certain reaction. Like I said, that's just part of maturing. And I think it's also worth noting that we have feelings for a reason. They are like our compass, really. We feel angry, happy, sad, all for reasons. Some of them are deeper than our conscious level. So some things might make us upset, but we don't really know why until we sit down and break it down. And I feel like they have the potential to be perfectly valid. And the reason I say potential to be perfectly valid, because just because you feel a way doesn't mean that it's justified. So like, there are instances where there's justified anger. It's like the outrage that people had over the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and the countless others. That's justified anger. But at times, there's oftentimes where things happen in our personal lives to where the reaction that we have isn't necessarily warranted. So I think it's really important to break down and take a step back and think, why am I angry, and should I be angry? And with that comes an extra level of introspection. And oftentimes when I realize that something's upset me, is because of something internal to myself completely. Like, somebody said something that struck a chord, and unbeknownst to them, that upset me because of something that happened a long time ago that had nothing to do with them. And I guess adopting that mentality allows me to better handle situations and not blow things out of proportion. And I think that was a huge step in my development once I made that realization. But I think that, just to answer the base question, that yes, you can control your emotions, and yes, you should.
It does.
I was gonna say you could go ahead, but I mean, still formulated thought. I think I've gone back into this question today. Mentioned emotions. There, it's a multifaceted experience in itself. There's multiple things in that you do that can describe or define what you view as emotions. You know, a frown on your face, or what the fuck expression on your face when somebody says something, you know,
Breaking up.
irrational. Like, that's a mode digesting information, and that'd be your first immediate response. You know, there is no chance to control, because you can't necessarily predict what is going to come to you. I think being able to control is synonymous with being able to manipulate, and you're really only ever able to do both if you can control all factors within all possible outcomes. You know, case in point, I think the most obvious example to me that you know, emotions can't necessarily be controlled is the importance of mental health. I mean, depression, anxiety, all that stuff, it centers in, your emotional core. There's something there that is uncontrollable to where you can't necessarily, do what you need to do to where it's alrighty, I have depression under control. It's no longer something I need to worry about. The stuff is always going to keep coming back. So that's when I say that, I mean that in the sense of, while we can't necessarily control our emotions because they're not tangible, we can control our reactions to those emotions. And I think you only control those actions with experience. Case in point, we had a discussion about 3 weeks ago in regards to LeBron James and his clutch factor in the NBA Finals when we go to the 2011 Finals against the Mavericks. There's no doubt in my mind that there is some emotion that he felt during that time that caused him to underperform. But if we watch his every performance after that, he was on top of his game. He had that control. He had the emotional intelligence to where even if you're feeling that nervousness, even if you're feeling that anxiety, you now have a remedy because of that experience. That's not to say that, okay, he's dealt with anxiety. He now knows how to control that anxiety and he no longer feels it. He still has that same anxiety, but now that control factor is in parts where you're not controlling necessarily the anxiety, but you're controlling the emotional response and physical response to that anxiety, and you're creating a beneficial and good product from it.
And that's the very same reason I say you can control your emotions. Because even in the case of depression and anxiety, well, I'm more familiar with anxiety as someone being prone to being anxious myself at times. We're the only ones who can save ourselves from that condition, really, in terms of you should seek therapy and take the necessary steps. But it all starts with the initial, the step forward to get the help and then develop the healthy coping mechanisms. Because otherwise, like what you were saying, it's going to be always present. But what happens is you develop the strategies that allow you to deal with it appropriately and have a more positive result.
But that's why I disagree, because like I said, emotions, they're not something tangible. Like, we're not chemists in a lab dealing with, pouring a little, like we're not Professor X. We're not pouring a little bit here and a little bit there. There are things that are happening, external factors we can't control, that are pouring those chemicals, and then we have to react. We have to react to whatever, chemicals we're feeling at that time. Like, to say that we can control it, I think is to overstate free will and, the ability we have to control. Because I think at the end of the day, we have a great amount of free will, but I think a lot of our free will is how we experience and how we interact with things. There's no human being on this earth that comes out all knowing. And I think the biggest, and it'll be my example B, is just how kids grow up in itself. Like, kids grow up and they have all these emotions that they don't know how to control. They look at their parents as the examples of how to control those emotions. And if that parent never grew up knowing how to control their emotions, then you have those generational breakdowns. That's not to say that, that even when that parent learns to control that emotion, that, they don't feel it anymore, or that they have this overwhelming control over that emotion. That just means that, hey, when that kid starts feeling that same emotion, then you're able to teach them how to react. I don't necessarily disagree with you 100%, because I think we're saying the same thing. You're just at a point to where you think that you can literally control the emotion that you feel, where I'm saying that we can't control the emotion that we feel, but we can control how we react to the emotion that we feel.
Right. No, I'm not saying that you can stop yourself from being angry, or you can stop yourself from being upset. It's like recognizing that, and then having patterns put in place to where you can analyze it and understand whether or not that's actually justified, for example.
Yeah, I think saying everything conclusive, I would say that our reactions can control our emotions, but that's like the reactive. I think to be in control of something, you have to be a bit proactive, and I think everything with emotion is reactive, and how you essentially accumulate those tools to be the best reactor to those emotions in comparison to yourself. Because really, you can't compare how someone reacts to certain emotions in comparison to you. I mean, you can, like, it could be a teaching lesson, but it's kind of hard for people who aren't emotionally articulate to break down how they felt every step of the way, and then to convey it, to the masses. I mean, I think the biggest case in point is there's a reason why your therapists get paid the amount of money they do. There's a reason why your celebrity therapists get paid the amount of money they do, because I mean, even with years and years of experience, people still struggle to handle those emotions that come with whatever life throws. I mean, there's a bundle of emotions that comes with getting a new job that you can't control. There's bundles of emotions that come with having children that you can't control. You just have to learn how to react to them. Because I mean, I look back at my parenthood, and I realize how much of my young parenthood was plagued by anxiety, because I just could not mentally grasp my son physically being here. And the only way that I could remove that anxiety, or I'm not even gonna say remove the anxiety, but conquer the anxiety, was to be more present, to get to the point to where I have now tricked my mind into, it's been saying for X amount of time that, he's physically here, but, mentally and emotionally, I can't grasp it. But the more time and experience I spent with going through what a father is supposed to do, then that's when everything began to feel more real. That's when I was able to cherish those moments and, replace that anxiety with, more joy and happiness. But it was all a reaction. It was never, really proactive.
It was a consequence of you accepting that responsibility. And so with that, what I was thinking is, there's certain situations to where how you're going to react, and you remove yourself from them without a doubt. So in an instance where someone's going to upset you, like we've spoke about that before, someone's going to piss you off, so you wouldn't put yourself in that dilemma. I consider that part of controlling your emotions or feelings, rather, if there's a difference.
That's more. Yeah, I agree, but I believe that's more wisdom than everything. I think that's you experiencing that and then knowing what the outcome is going to be. I don't think it's more or less like you. And before I even continue that sentence, the one thing I was thinking about like 5 minutes before I even came on was like, in order for you to be able to control your emotions, you would be exhausted every minute of every hour of every day. Because in order for you to control your emotions, you have to be on. Like, you have to be in a state of mind to where you are literally able to digest every piece of information, every interaction that there is, and to be able to respond in a way that is appropriate to every interaction. Like, the way I think of that is like, if you work a 9 to 5, you dedicate so much time to that 9 to 5 that when it's now, 5:01 to 10 or 5:01 to 11, when it's time for you to go to sleep, your family might not be getting that same emotion and that same energy that you put into that 9 to 5, because mentally and emotionally, you switched off for the day. You're no longer able to respond, maybe in a good way or maybe in a bad way, to all those events that occurred during that 9 to 5, because of the fatigue that settles with having to be on for that amount of time, to where you're able to digest everything and respond appropriately.
And even though we might just be sitting at a desk, you've used up the of your bandwidth, really.
Yeah. Like, I'm not gonna lie, man, that's part of the reason why, like, as much as I love the idea of, going to law school, which is something I'm still gonna do, but I fall constantly out of love of, being a lawyer when I hear, 80-hour work weeks, 70-hour work weeks. Like, I'm just thinking about it like, man, even though you're doing something that you love, the constraint on freedom has to take an emotional toll, over time. Like, I think as like generations evolve, we realize that there's more than one way to make it into this world, and to emotionally put yourself in a predicament to where you're doing what you got to do to make mom and dad happy, but you're not really happy yourself.
Gotcha. I was kind of basically on really going down both ways, because I was really thinking about it being really situational. And really, when I say that, I feel like in certain situations you can control your emotions in a way. It's like, say for instance, because Desmond mentioned he was a jealous type. So say for instance, he was dating a girl and she kept doing something that made him jealous. He can over time control himself where he wouldn't get jealous in that situation anymore. But that doesn't mean he'll stop being jealous altogether, like with any other girl in the future or anything like that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like what Des said, just making sure you react, because you can't necessarily control your emotions. You can't stop yourself from like being angry, because it'll happen. It depends on how you actually react to it. Yeah. So yeah, I was really going down that road. It's kind of really situational and how, yeah.
But I'm not even gonna lie. That's something I had thought about too in that 10 minutes leading up. When I think of confidence in itself, my confidence is more of like me tricking myself. Like I'm not gonna lie, there's still points and times where I get jealous or I feel inadequate or I feel like I'm not where I should be. But that often comes as a result of comparison. And I think the number one way that I really trick my comparison or trick my mind into, straying away from those comparisons, I'm like, these people that I'm comparing myself to pale in the comparison to somebody else. Case in point is I'll be very, very irrational to get over it, but I'll say, this isn't Jeff Bezos, this isn't Elon Musk, this isn't Joe Rogan, this isn't none of the people that, I look up to on a philosophical level or even a financial level to where I should feel some form of insecurity. Like this isn't Morris Chestnut. Like I shouldn't feel some type of way about a girl liking some other guy or a guy driving a certain car or having X amount of money. Like I feel like being in a capitalist society, and then like we've always touched on, and being part of an age to where people flaunt, I think it's easy to fall victim to it. I know for me, I was very, very materialistic, the early part of my 20s and then all throughout my teens and, the latter part of my, whatever you want to call it, my adolescence, like 7, 8, 9, 10, I wanted all the toys. So it's easy for me to, default back to what I had felt for a predominant amount of time in my life. But, it's also like what I have to trick myself into, understanding and digesting to let that be a very, very short-lived bout with that emotion.
Josh, question for you now. You had mentioned the fact that you learned to cope with jealousy with one woman, for example. It doesn't always translate to your relationship with another. Why is that the case? Why do you think that?
Because it could be different. Like I said, it's situational. It really depends on the situation. So, for instance, one woman might not look as good as the other woman. It really just depends. Like it's situational. I feel. You feel that you can translate even if you're like jealous with this one girl, you can translate it to the like other one. Yeah, it can, but that doesn't stop you. It's like a relapse. It doesn't stop you from going back to where you truly were. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, yeah, it's like a relapse, because you was like that before, and then it's a new situation, but you still go back to how you were before. So it's kind of like a relapse. Like I said, relapses happen, but I don't think you can control it. You can't stop yourself in that first instance. Like, yeah, you can't stop yourself in that first instance.
Is that something you've experienced?
As far as yeah, of course. I think everybody experienced, as far as like, even if
no, that exact same thing where you had experienced the jealousy. Of course, we all have done it, but you've learned how to cope with it and deal with it properly, and then the same situation presents itself later with a different woman, a different situation, and the jealousy is present once more.
Yeah, absolutely. It might not start that way. Say, for instance, like in the beginning, I might not be as jealous. That might be because I don't feel like I don't like her as much at that time. Like a little bit later on down the road, I might like her much, so I might get a little bit more jealous as far as like her hanging out with her guy friends, something like that. So yeah, I have experienced that. Yeah. Do you think you can control your emotions?
Do I think I can? Are you saying like me personally? Do I think I can control my emotions?
Yeah, you personally.
Based off what I just said earlier, I think I do a great job at controlling my emotions. Um, it's all about checking yourself. That's what I feel like. Because there's oftentimes where I feel I might be angry with someone, but I take the time to process it. So that's something that I don't know if this is what you guys do, but I've noticed when I talk to other people, this is not how they handle their emotions. But my first reaction is instinctively to think through things. So if you tell me something like bad news, something's gonna piss me off, quote unquote, I can be relatively calm and stable while I'm talking through and think about it, and then like the emotions, how I feel, like my reaction will occur afterwards.
Do you do that all the time?
Yes,
Every single time?
that's just how I think. Like it's strange. Depending on what it is, it could be a different time frame. It could be like just 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but it's always not like. Um, I mean, I could definitely think of some times where there was like an immediate reaction, but for the brunt of things, it's like okay, something's being told to me, something's being said to me, something happens. I think about it, and then I'll feel that kind of feel whatever it is.
But
Because
if you have,
oftentimes we don't even when something happens to you in an instant. Sometimes we don't even have all the information of what exactly happened, so we don't know how to feel.
yeah, that's true. But if you have an immediate reaction, doesn't that mean you don't have control of that said emotion?
At that point in time, yes.
Okay. But you
That's what.
have it now. But you were saying, okay,
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that I've achieved this state of Zen to where I can always control everything. It's saying this is something that happens the majority of the time, but I'm human. Like I'm no different than you or Des in that regard, to where we all have the capacity to do that. Even though I might think of things differently,
does that
based
equate to control though?
at that point, whenever that occurs, yes, I am controlling them. But when it doesn't, then that's a lack of the control.
Okay.
I mean, didn't you just say you can relapse in things?
Yeah, but I feel you're saying it's absolute control. Like there's
That's not what I'm saying.
okay. Making sure. There's
I'm
you got something
saying
to say?
for the most part, but there are relapses.
I think really what he's saying in a nutshell is that he's got to the point to where he's followed a certain strategy to where he's able to accept emotions as they come and then not let those emotions that he accepts control him or his immediate reaction. Because I mean, I don't want to necessarily label that as compartmentalizing, because compartmentalizing is negligence in itself. Because I mean, people who are braggadocious about being able to compartmentalize or recommending that as a remedy, I think they fail to realize A always has to go to B, and oftentimes when you compartmentalize, you're just at A moving to B with all this luggage with no help, and then when you get to B, you're able to just dump it. But it's like, no, you still have to recap on everything that happened from A to B. Like you can't just ignore all the pain and the heartache, because the stuff just it eats away at your conscious and your subconscious to where it can affect. I mean, it can affect your sleep schedule. It can affect how you interact with loved ones. It can affect how you interact with strangers, or any of that stuff, man. So I think I wouldn't label what he's saying at all as compartmentalizing. I think it's just he has developed a strategy, whether it be intentional or unintentional, to where he's able to, more times than not, accept the emotions as they come and then not let them control him or his
Right.
response.
Because I know that they're for a reason.
Yeah.
Like oftentimes, if you just listen to your emotions, they'll reveal things about yourself that you didn't even know. Like if you sit down and think, why exactly does this certain outcome that happened? Why did this make you happy? Why do you even care? Or like, why exactly am I jealous? And then you realize, okay, well, this happened to me 3 years ago, and ever since then, whenever something similar happens, I'm put right back in that position. I'm jealous again. Like we don't feel any certain emotion just arbitrarily. They're rooted in like the depths of our psyche and in our general experience. Do you say you control your emotions, Josh?
Say it again.
Do you control yours?
To a degree, I think I do have relapses. as everybody does, but I don't think I'm to the category of you. I don't think I've mastered it like you have, but I think I have some relapses. Yeah, I have some relapses because I do try to think of. I'm usually a reactor person, so I don't always like. I'll get mad, but afterwards I have to do it afterwards. Like, oh wait, should I have gotten mad at that right there? Like, was that really serious? You know what I mean? So it really depends on what it is, to be honest with you. But I do have relapses, but a lot of times I do catch myself saying, wait, should I even have been mad at that, or should I have been nervous at that, or how do I stop myself from doing this? So yeah.
Right. It requires a lot of energy to exert to be angry. And like, so the easiest way that I was able to put this into perspective for myself is I look at other people when they're angry. Like, I would see somebody get upset and slam a door or something like that, and to me it's ridiculous. You see people in traffic, like they'll get cut off, or let's say the lane is wide open, for example. This is exactly what happened to me, and there was nobody else in these other lanes. Somebody comes rolling up behind me, and then they're not satisfied with me going 70, so they get over in the other lane and put the middle finger there yelling, and for nothing, because all the other lanes were open. So you're exerting yourself, you're making an ass of yourself, you're potentially putting your life at risk, because when you're looking at me, something else can easily happen at the snap of a second. So just understanding, like, the anger can work to the detriment of ourselves if it's unchecked and not justified, like, fairly easily. So I think just with that knowledge of and being understanding of what exactly the consequences could be, that helps a lot too.
Makes sense. Anything else?
Yeah. What are some of your personal coping mechanisms when it comes to addressing those negative emotions?
My coping mechanisms? I mainly just really. Wait, what do you mean negative emotions? Like what exactly?
Being upset, like the negative emotion suite, the neuroticism suite, jealousy, upset, sad, angry.
Like I said, it's just thinking about it and thinking if it's really worth it, to be honest with you. Because I think really with the whole angry thing, I've got a kind of how little that is from my job, because I'm with these kids who get angry over really the littlest things, and like I don't even just work with kids with autism. Like, not all the kids I work with had autism, and just like a regular kid, he'll just get angry because he has to like do something simple, like just clean the living room. Like he's like, oh, I hate my life. Like, oh man, see, really, you don't know anything. Trust me, like this is nothing. So, and I'll think about that a lot and just think like it's so little. Like it could be easily avoided, and I know my mom complains a lot too, so I always think about, I try not to do that at all. I try not to go follow her footsteps. I try to actually, I try not to complain at all. I try to think about ways to fix it before even complaining or anything like that. If I complain, that's definitely gonna be the last thing I do, like the very last thing I do. If like I feel there's no solution to the problem at all, that's the only way I'm gonna complain. But other than that, I'm going to actually like think of an actual solution and think of a way through it. So that's really my coping mechanism with that. That's really the main thing.
Yeah. Before we got on here, for today's episode, while we were waiting for Des, so we had a discussion about, I guess, the wording of this question, and so that actually brought forth an interesting question of my own to bring to you. So, what's the difference between emotions and feelings, if there is any?
I don't know. I haven't done my research. I don't think they're. No, it's not really a difference. You think so?
No, I thought, based off what you said earlier about the question being changed, that there was a difference.
I was picking with you too, but like, come on. But I was saying that it could have rooted like a different conversation too. That's what I was saying, between feelings and emotions. But I was just picking with you too. I wasn't actually being,
I see. Should know better.
Like, come on, guys.
Because in my mind, they're synonymous with each other.
Yeah. So can we? And also, I think the other one was, can we really feel? Can we? What was it? The original question.
I don't know. Something like
I thought it was like a
Can we
plural
truly
thing.
control our emotions?
Yeah,
Or
well, this one is like a more of a singular type thing. So that could have brought a different type of conversation to it. That's why.
regardless, we were going to talk about each one, just like you just did. You just asked me, can I control my emotions?
Yeah.
Daz, did you have I noticed you kind of perked up when we were talking about feelings and emotion. Do you think there's any differentiation?
So I like Josh said, I didn't do my research, but I, of course, have my computer open. I'm always looking at something. So I'm looking at whatever WFU is, IE, whatever college that is. They just simply state, and this is why I made the face, it says a fundamental difference between feelings and emotions is that feelings are experienced consciously, while emotions manifest either consciously or subconsciously. And that makes the most sense. Like for me, and I think the easiest way I can translate that is, feelings are intentional. Like there is something that has happened to produce that feeling. And then when I think about emotions, I think about something intentional, or I could think about how many times that I have, artificially put myself into a depressed state because I've been in the back of my mind, I've been thinking or playing out scenarios that haven't even, manifested yet, or might never manifest. Like always drumming up or summing up, alternate realities to things that never really come to fruition. Or just, the easiest thing to think about is, emotions. Like you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Like today for me, how I was saying before we started recording, like, I don't know why I felt the way I felt today. Like I slept good, nothing happened. It's just that I felt like I just had off dates where everything wasn't clicking.
So you're saying the difference is, according to whatever source you decided, the difference is the intent.
Yeah.
Or the lack thereof.
That's how. Yeah. That's how I trans. When I think of conscious mind, I think that there's. Oh, this is Wake Forest University, but yeah, I think for me that would be the translation.
Yeah, I definitely gotta look into that. But as far as general usage, I feel like most people use those two words interchangeably.
I think people use them erroneously.
How so?
I think it goes just in, because I think the easiest way for me to answer that question is think about how big of a discussion we had about the talking versus dating versus in a relationship question. We really don't know what, or we can't come to a concise and we can't get a general consensus on what any of those phases are, and everyone can't agree on what all of those phases are. I think we can agree on what those three phases are, but not everybody does. So when we look at the masses and we see that there is a discrepancy in how we view love in itself and lust in itself, then how can someone who can't view love and lust and articulate the difference between the two provide you an in-depth answer on the difference between emotion and feelings? Because I honestly think if you can articulate between love and lust, then I think you can honestly articulate between what you're feeling at the time and if it's going to be temporary, or what that emotion is at the time, and if it's something that can stand the test of time and provide longevity. That's why I think that's really why people say, feelings are always temporary, because it's intentional. It's something that you grasp at the time. And because our minds are moving so fast, it comes and it goes. It doesn't just move to your subconscious and then, resurface at a different time. It's something that you experience and then it goes. Because think about how many times we have those conversations with loved ones and we're like, you remember when, and then it brings back that rush of emotion that you felt at that given time. Like it's not something that is just, consistently there. Like you're not feeling the same feelings that you felt when you were 3 years old or 4 years old when you got this toy for Christmas that you're feeling at 25 now. Like that the feelings you had during that time, they're gone. But when you reminisce about it and you get those feelings back, then you can kind of see how it was a conscious effort to rethink and recap that scenario or that event in your life, and then to relive the feelings that came with it. And then the emotions are just a byproduct of all that. because they could have happened regardless. That's like a scenario in my mind to where feelings and emotions, they go hand in hand. But then I'm not going to try and create the counter argument because that was really just off the cuff.
I think you had me, I wasn't agreeing for the most part of what you were saying. Like I was understanding, but I was trying to reconcile and make sense of it. And the gist of what I was able to make sense of was that a feeling is a collective experience of, like what you were saying, recollection. If somebody's bringing back and say, oh, do you remember then? But then like the emotions themselves are the individual, like angry, happy, sad type things that compose that, but it doesn't entirely encapsulate the entire experience.
Exactly.
I still feel like both of them are temporary though. Like they're very fleeting.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying. It was saying that emotion can either be conscious or subconscious. And like I said, when it comes to your conscious mind, like because we move at such a fast pace, it comes and it goes. Which is why I think we have, like, to benefit your argument to a sense, I think that's why we have the ability to be mad about something for just 5 minutes and put in, the parameters to be mad just for that amount of time and to sum it up as something insignificant or something that's not as big of a deal, so you can enjoy the other, 23 hours and 55 minutes of your day.
Josh, what do you think?
No, I was gonna ask if I'm jealous of something, do I feel jealous, or how? I'm trying to figure out exactly. I think I get what you mean, but
Are you asking me?
I'm asking Des.
Oh.
Well, yeah, like I don't think it's something that's uber complicated. You would feel jealous because it's a conscious feel, like you've thought about something and it has produced, or something is happening and it has produced a state of jealousy, a conscious state of jealousy. So yes, it could be both an emotion and a feeling at that specific time, because it has came at a conscious state.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
So on that topic, can you control who you love, do you think?
Control who you love?
Yeah.
I think that's just a testament of character.
What do you mean?
Because I really haven't formulated the thought in whole, but the reason why I say I think it's a testament to character, because oftentimes with love, like there's things that happen that go sour, but when you have, true organic love, then that love is supposed to be able to, withstand all of that. Like you could literally, divorce, you could break up, you could do whatever, but that love is still supposed to maintain to where you should want to see that person do better, even if it's not with you. So I don't think you can necessarily control who you love, but I think it is a testament to character to when you can either A, love that person, for the rest of eternity, or B, you can love that person through the hardships, realize that it's not necessarily meant to be, and then walk away without any hard feelings. Because I think a lot of times people, you see these lovey-dovey relationships, you see everything look good, you see everything, being displayed like everything's all right, but then when the split happens, there's nothing but ill will and a manifestation of malice for no reason. Because oftentimes, like I think and this is why I say it's the ultimate test of character, is because a lot of time with love continuing in its organic state is the ability to me to be able to accept an apology without hearing it. Like a lot of times it's like, okay, it should be you being able to step back, analyze the entire situation and say, okay, everything aside, all emotions aside, when I look back at this scenario, was I in an emotional state, or was I in a healthy emotional state to where I should have been in a relationship that would have withstood the test of time? If I can't conclusively say yes, then I say, okay, I have a bit to blame for this not lasting. Then I also say, when I look at the other person, was that person in an emotional state to where they should have been in a relationship that could have potentially stood the test of time? If I say yes, then I can understand that now I could potentially be the person to blame for it going sour. But if I say no, then I also understand, okay, we were two damaged people coming together who truly genuinely loved each other, but wasn't able to necessarily reconcile our differences or reconcile whatever we had going on internally for the betterment of the relationship. For that reason in itself, I can forgive that person without hearing sorry, because I have fully understood and digest what went wrong without having to have that person tell me what went wrong. It's an ultimate test of maturity, and then it's an ultimate test of character as well, because now you can sit here and say, all right, I forgive that person without a need to have any closure, without having had a need for you to come in and break it down, because I understand it. And for that reason, I can say, all right, I forgive you. I still have a great amount of love for you, so I want to see you grow and do better. And that's it. Like, love isn't supposed to really ever turn sour. Like, when you have that love for someone, it's supposed to be, I think there's a reason, when you say your vows for better or worse, you still have a great amount of love for that person because you want to see them successful, even if you aren't a beneficiary to that success or a catalyst to that success. Like, you should just want to see people do good, because at the end of the day, I mean, why wish ill will onto someone you used to claim you love for, whether it been 2 days or 2 years or 20 years or whatever?
But when we talked about this before on like one of the OG episodes, we spoke about how feelings change, things like that change.
Yeah.
And the concept of, like, I think it was you who actually spoke on the concept of falling out of love with someone. But the entire reason that I asked the question was because on the subject, when you brought up the differentiating love and lust, and then also I'm a big proponent of the idea that love is more than just a feeling, it's actual verbs. There's two parts of it, I feel like. There's the attraction, and then there's the actual actions that support that. And so with that, that's why I asked, like, could you actually control who you love?
Well, I think to control who you love would be able to control your emotion. How would not just be strengthening your argument?
That's not the point. I'm not trying to.
No, I know. I'm messing with you. I mean, to be completely honest, just with, like, I don't ever want people to watch this and think that I have the most experience in the world. I don't. I just have a great ability to reconcile what wasn't and what was. So, that's just what it is. When I think of love, and I think about my instances with love, like, I don't see it as just a feeling. I see it really like more of an emotion, because I think the love itself exists in a conscious and a subconscious state. Like, if I wasn't to be thinking about a person and you randomly brought it up, then I could speak well on that person without having to, sit here and think back to, I don't know. Because I mean, I'm not gonna be 100% with you. In the amount of time that we've been shooting this podcast, there was a time where I spoke on things from an emotional standpoint, to where I really wasn't articulating my emotions to the best of my ability, to where I wasn't necessarily digesting everything, from a good, healthy standpoint. And so, like, I can look back on things and I can say, it is very, very much possible for you to, fall out of love. I think that would be you falling out of love with that person in the sense of the feeling. But I think the love, as far as the emotion and wanting that person to continue to do better with or without your presence, I think that's a result of love and the emotion itself, to where that love isn't just exclusive maybe to that one person. You love that person on the same level you might love your sister. You might not be reacting and showing the feeling in the same way of how you consciously depict love and what you do as far as the action. But from the subconscious and the emotional standpoint, like, yeah, you want that person to do better. Like, if that person was to die today, like, I would be at their funeral bawling out because I genuinely care for that person type emotion. Like, the feeling might not have been there, what we typically describe a relationship as, where it's, the happiness, the joy, the sad, the anxiety, the jealousy, like all those feelings that come with loving someone. But I think you're still able to love someone as far as the emotion goes without having any experience to those feelings.
Josh, you got something you want to contribute?
Just to your question, I would Yeah, I would say yeah, for the reasons that you said. Because love is not just a feeling; it's about action too. So I feel you can control that, basically, but you can't always control how other people feel about you or what they do. So yeah, I do feel you can necessarily control who you love in that instance. Yes, that's what I was supposed to say.
Yeah. Like with the two components, the attraction part, I mean, I don't think we're ever gonna achieve a solid consensus of how much of your attraction is conscious and how much is subconscious. Like you have people that go back and forth about that all day. But as far as making the conscious decision to act out that love that you have for that person, like that's something that you actually have to take the initiative to do. So with somebody like it's a careful distinction that I make between finding a woman attractive but not being attracted to her. Like she might look good, but I know that she's not in a position to help move me towards, or she's not the kind of person that I'm moving my goals towards, like moving my life towards, or fits in line with those plans. That'd probably be a better word because I don't change my goals for anyone, but somebody who isn't on the same path as I am, rather. So with that in mind, I would also like that's also additional justification ability to choose who we love.
Yeah, I agree. Des, you got something to say? Nobody? You want to add something, Brian?
I had a few questions. I'm parsing through. I'm trying to see if there's anything else. Desmond, I know you've spoken quite a deal about forgiveness over the past few episodes, and I don't think recollection, Josh, that we've had this discussion. Do you find it difficult for yourself to forgive people? And if so, why?
Nah, I find it very, very easy to forgive people. To be completely honest, is just because, you know, I think it was a lot of getting rid of the ego per se, because I stopped taking a lot of things personally. Like there'd be plenty of times to where, Josh and I will be playing the game and like I will be irate for 2 seconds and I'm like, it's just a game. Like I will be pissed off, like to the like blood boiling, literally as mad as I could be for 5 seconds. And then I'll just be like, it's just a game. And then we'll go back to doing exactly what we're doing. Like there's times where I'll play the game with Josh and he might do something that'll piss me off and I'll be like, it's just a game. Like outside of this game right here, like this moment in itself doesn't depict the full relationship. So we have as, friends and, 3 podcast members. So why would I let that one moment dictate the entire, friendship in itself? So like there's times where that moment might dictate that, hey, this needs to be a termination of the friendship, but there's no hard feelings with that. That was a rational, conscious decision that I made. Like there's no reason to feel some type of way about that. Like I really don't think you should, when you make decisions, I don't think you should make them without, truly identifying everything that I said when it comes to forgiving someone. Being able to identify, were you a catalyst in, the termination, or was the other person, or were you both in the wrong? Like when you can do that stuff, it makes removing yourself so much easier, and it makes not taking anything personal. So like I don't know if you guys have read it. I think it's called the 5 Agreements. Anthony, where have you ever listened to it? Or the 4 Agreements? Yeah, the 4 Agreements. It's one of the agreements. It's a book that I had read halfway through, and I had it at work. This was when I was a manager at Cloud9, and one of my coworkers walked up and he said, "Yo, I've really been wanting to read that book." And I was like, you go ahead, take it, read it. Let me know what you think. And like there were days where he would come in at 8:30, and I would see him actually documenting notes about what he was reading and how he was digesting that information and bringing everything full circle on how he wanted to apply it into his life. And when I saw that, like I never asked for the book back, because it was going to do him a world of justice. Whereas to me, it was something that I was going to read, and I might have took one of the 4 agreements, personal. I mean, that's what I did. Like the one agreement that I really, really genuinely apply every single day is, don't take anything personally. Like, because if you think about it, think how many times you might look at somebody the wrong way, or they might look at you the wrong way, and you get offensive about it, or you think there's a problem. Like that, like as a young, testosterone young teen full of testosterone, like that's something that would have triggered me at 18. But it's like if I see somebody looking at me funny now, or if I accidentally look at somebody funny, like it's never intentional. Like I don't care. Like if you feel some type of way, keep that over there. If I feel some type of way, I'm going to address it if it's really something worth being upset about. And 10 times out of 10, I'm going to tell myself it's not worth it because it's not something I'm going to think about the next day.
Let's see. This question was primarily for Josh because like I kind of knew from like what you previously said about how now you found an ease in forgiving people, especially when the apology isn't even offered to you. But I don't think that Josh has spoken on forgiveness, or at least not in any conversation that I've had with you.
No, not really. But I don't find it hard to forgive at all, because just the main thing is what that said. Don't take anything personal, because it's really not at all. And I definitely had to learn that early, not to take anything personal, especially with like insecurities that I was feeling during like high school and shit like that, growing up. But yeah, that's definitely the main thing. Just not take anything personal, and just realize that shit happens to not just you; it happens to everybody. And if somebody is like, and if it's something's just happening to you, then you're special in that instance, and you should honestly feel honored, to be honest. But yeah, it's like what he said with the game too. Like, yeah, I think it was like 2 days. Like it was, I think I was thinking about this yesterday too. I was like, this is the first time I actually got mad over a game, and it lingered for about a couple of days too. Cause I was like, yo, I've been performing crazy in Call of Duty. I've been like bugging, like, and mainly that because I don't get the time, like, I haven't been practicing, like warming up and shit, like going into like demolition beforehand, and like messing with my guns and everything too. So I just like hop into the game, but like sometimes I just let it linger, and I'm just like, wait, should I even be like that upset? Like I can't take this personal, because like if I want to be better, like, I got to do better. That's what I got to do. I just like, if I want this to change, like I just got to make the necessary steps to do it, and I just think about that. But the main thing is definitely just not taking anything personal. Definitely, yeah, like that said.
When you said you were mad for a few days, this wasn't like a continuous rage that was stewing, like 24 hours and you woke up. It was more so like intermittent, where you would think about it and like, oh man, I should have done this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Then it was like, it's past. I can do better next time. Or like, if you want to do better, go practice and get on the game early and do warm up matches and some shit. So yeah, it's just definitely just not taking anything personal. And that's about like a lot of things in life. And you hear that. I think you hear that a lot about like from like celebrities and everything, like work, everything. So just you can't take anything personal, because shit happens all the time.
And I wanted to at least make a distinction for like people listening. We're making an example of a video game, but what we have to realize is with this is not once did we say but. I think when you're trying to forgive somebody, or when you're reconciling anything internally, if you arrive at a but, then you literally just negated every conscious thought you might have just had. And you're going to find yourself forgiving half-heartedly, or not at all. Like you're going to say I'm sorry, but you're not going to truly mean it. Like saying I'm sorry or forgiving someone has to be a continuous flow. It can't be I forgive you, but you shouldn't have made me mad. That's not forgiveness, and also that's not an apology if you say I'm sorry, but, because you have to think forgiveness in itself needs to be a reconciliation of everything that has happened. It can't be you getting from A to C, but then driving back to B because, there's something going on at B that keeps bugging you. Like you need to go A to B, reconcile over dinner, coffee, whatever with yourself, what happened at B, and then get to C. And C be that true, authentic forgiveness, or that true, genuine apology, to where it no longer bothers you. Like the key to anything we talk about is really just truly not taking anything personally. I mean, there's countless episodes we've shot to where you could apply not taking something personal to what we're saying.
Yeah, I did mention how I was texting a girl and she didn't text me back, and I think at that realization when I didn't get like upset or let that bother me and didn't take that actually personal, because she's like in a relationship with somebody else now and everything. I think at that moment I was just like, okay, yeah, I've passed that. Like I'm not in that same state of mind where I just take everything personal. I'm just insecure to the point where I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, here we go again. It's me. It's not, you know what I mean? So yeah, definitely.
It's hard to step outside of yourself and look at things, just on a human level, because what we've spoken about prior on other episodes is the fact that we don't have knowledge of the totality of everyone else's experience. So
I think it's hard at first, but
yeah,
when you
for sure.
Yeah, I think it's hard at first. When you get used to it, like you can sit back like, okay, yeah, I did that wrong. That's my bad. Yeah, so
Right.
I don't even think you get used to it, bro. I think it's just, for me, it just clicked one day. Like one day, everything just made perfect, crystal clear sense, and I never looked back.
yeah.
Like really, honestly, like there was just one day where I was just like, I asked myself, I was like, what the fuck are you so mad about? Like, is there really anything in this life for you to be mad about? And then I don't know if I've ever, told y'all my theory to life, but I was like, everything, I think I said everything, life is really just one big casino. You're dealt a hand, and that hand has, odds of whatever. You can either A, fold and get a better hand, or B, you can continue to play that hand and you can allow it to pan out, the way the dealer wants it to, or you can get that better hand and you can, get those better odds of winning. Like life to me, and this all clicked like November of last year. I was just like, life is nothing more than just a game of odds. You have to just make those, you have to make, turn those odds into your favor, be risk accepting, do what you want to do. Like, and that all starts with everything that we've talked about on this podcast: emotional intelligence, understanding love, understanding all those phases to love that might confuse you. So that way, when you're placing everything into practice, or understanding the jobs, or understanding the money, or understanding whatever, it all has to start somewhere. Like, it's never just going to click. And I mean, I think the biggest key to that, I mean, to name drop Jeff Bezos again, like, we look back at that picture of him in the earlier late 90s when he looked terrible. Like, man had a receding hairline, working out of a garage. Now look at him. Like, nobody on this earth can afford Jeff Bezos. Like, it all has to start somewhere. And that literally applies to every possible facet of life.
Oh, yeah.
I like to think of life more so in terms of a Greek play. So it's either a comedy and you're laughing too, or you're being laughed at, and in that case, it becomes a tragedy.
Okay. If you like that analogy
The
better.
great tragedy. Yeah, my casino theory is something that was really, really well thought out. I have it written down, but just trying to recite it off the top of my head, it didn't click. But I think if you understand casinos and you understand odds and being risk accepting, then it'll click at some point. Like, you'll be able to tweak the theory to where it makes sense to you.
Right. No, I agree totally with what you're saying. Like, I understand the concept of everything being up to odds, and a lot of that's outside of our control, but it's up to us to what we do exactly after that. But that's something that I guess you introduced to us, and prior to that was the way that I looked at things. It's like I try to find the comedic value in what's going on, even if something's going wrong. Like, if this happened to you or Josh or somebody else that I saw on the street, like, this shit would be funny. So just adopting that practice with myself and not taking myself too seriously in the majority of the situations, the ones that I do have the wherewithal to step back and look at them, I feel that does work. But I mean, what you saying, how everything is based on odds, that explains everything perfectly.
You got anything else you guys want to add? Yes. No. I know you have an album of the week though. I can't wait though.
Do I have an album of the week this week? What was last week? It was Big Sean.
Detroit 2.
Yeah.
Detroit 2. Oh yeah. It was written. Nas. That's my favorite Nas album. It was funny because I was listening to it and I was rapping it word for word, and I just kept thinking it back to the GOAT conversation when Brian brought up Jay-Z, and just off the top of my head, I spit Nas's Live at the Barbecue verse. So yeah. I listened to Illmatic and I listened to It Was Written this past week, but It Was Written still.
Ever listen to I Am?
Yeah, I've listened. I have all of them.
No.
I have all of them, but I Am, man, I don't appreciate it yet. Like, I bought that album like back in 2012 or 2013, and I never really could appreciate it other aside from Nas's Light. So I don't know, maybe I'm at a different point to where I can listen to it and appreciate it. But It Was Written, Illmatic, Stillmatic, those are all like songs. Those are all Nas albums that I could listen to. And I mean, even Life Is Good. Those are all albums that I could listen to from start to finish and like actually appreciate the album from start to finish.
Okay. All right, guys. If you guys like the discussion, don't forget to hit the like button. We're gonna see you guys next week. Wakanda forever, motherfucker. No.
Oh, hey, I didn't even see you there. But while you're here, be sure to check out other great content from the Breakdown crew, including previous episodes of the podcast, Joshua vs. Movies, Joshua vs. Music, and of course, haven't forgotten about my plant lovers, Feel the Love. Just check out this begonia.